She doesn't even know what day it is, Your Honor. My stepmother said it calmly, smoothly, like she was ordering coffee. She sat 3 feet away from me, in Harris County Probate Court wearing the Cartier watch my father bought her 2 Christmases ago, and told the judge I was mentally incompetent. I didn't cry. I didn't react. I folded my hands in my lap, and counted silently. 14. That was how many days she had left before everything she stole came back to bury her. My name is Emily Calloway. Diane married my father 8 months after my mother died. She came with blonde highlights, a sweet southern voice, and the kind of smile that made people trust her before they should. My father was grieving. Diane turned that grief into access. For 17 years, she wrapped herself around his life. The house in River Oaks. The lake place in Conroe. The family trust my grandfather built brick by brick through commercial real estate. Diane liked all of it. Then my father had a stroke. He died on a Tuesday morning at 6:47. I was holding his hand when it happened. Diane was in the waiting room, calling his financial advisor. A week after the funeral, I learned 3 things. My father had updated his will. He left Diane the house. He left the trust to me. And Diane had known. Worse, she'd been draining money from the trust's operating account for months before he died. Small transfers. $5,000. $8,000. Nothing loud. By the time I finished tracing it, more than $310,000 had vanished. Most people would have exploded right there. That's what Diane needed. Because her real plan wasn't just to steal the money. It was to steal my credibility. If I got emotional, if I accused her too early, if I looked angry, she'd tell everyone the same story she told that judge. Emily is unstable. Emily is grieving. Emily can't manage anything. So I did the one thing she never expected. I got quiet. I moved into a cheap studio. Drove my old Civic. Showed up to family dinners and smiled across the table while she touched my hand and said, "Your father would want us to stay close, sweetheart." Then, every night, I went home, opened my laptop, and followed every dollar she touched. What Diane never understood was simple. She thought I was just some forgettable accounting analyst. What she didn't know was that I had spent years doing forensic audits, fraud cases, hidden transfers, shell companies. I knew exactly what stolen money looks like when it tries to disappear. And Diane was not subtle. She'd routed the money through 3 LLCs with names so fake they were almost funny. Bluebird Properties, Gulf Horizon Consulting, Legacy Asset Management. She called the theft vehicle Legacy. For 5 months, I documented everything. Transfer records, IP logs, corporate filings, device IDs, destination accounts. Then Diane got greedy. She filed for emergency conservatorship. She told the court I was mentally unfit to manage the trust. Brought in a psychologist who had never examined me. A man who diagnosed me over the phone based on whatever lies she fed him. By the time we got to courtroom for B, she had an audience. My aunt, cousins, family, friends. Even one woman I later learned was Diane's hairdresser, apparently there to nod on cue. Diane dabbed at her eyes and told the judge I was confused, forgetful, frightened. Her lawyer stood up and said the trust had lost over $300,000 due to my incompetence. Then the judge looked at me. "Miss Calloway," he said, "how do you respond?" That room was waiting for a breakdown. Instead, I stood up, buttoned my blazer, looked directly at Diane, and said, I just want to be sure she's finished, Your Honor. I wouldn't want to interrupt her while she's still under oath. That was the first crack. Then her lawyer handed over records showing the missing money, like he'd just made his case for her. I let the silence settle. Then I asked to approach the bench. I brought a black binder. 200 pages, color-tabbed. Green for corporate ownership. Yellow for the forgery. I set it in front of the judge and said, I didn't lose track of the money, Your Honor. I watched every dollar leave. You could feel the air change. I walked him through the shell companies first. All three were tied to Diane through confidential filings. Then the transfer logs. Every single transaction came from the same laptop on the same home network. Her home. Then I showed where the money went next. A joint brokerage account held by Diane and a man named Trevor Fisk. Not her husband. Her boyfriend. The room went dead silent. I explained that Trevor was a real estate agent in Galveston. That he and Diane had been involved for years. That they had a condo together. That trust money helped pay for it while my father was still alive. My aunt stopped looking at me and started looking at Diane like she'd never seen her before. But that still wasn't the part that broke the room. The yellow tab did that. Diane had submitted a letter to the court supposedly signed by my father, giving her authority over the trust. Clean signature. Proper date. Very official. It was fake. I had the signature analyzed. It had been lifted from an older document and pasted into the new one. The PDF metadata showed it was created 4 days after my father died, on a computer registered to Diane's lawyer. That's when the judge removed his glasses. Not dramatically. Quietly. Tiredly. Like a man realizing he had almost been turned into a weapon. He looked at Diane and asked, "Did you file this petition knowing you were the one making those transfers?" Her lawyer told her not to answer. She answered anyway. And that was it. Once she started talking, she couldn't stop. First, she blamed me. Then, she blamed the lawyer. Then she said my father wanted her to have control. Then she admitted just enough to destroy herself. The judge denied the conservatorship on the spot. Then he referred the forged document and fraudulent petition to the district attorney. Then he added something else. Because the money had crossed state lines through shell companies and wire transfers, he was referring it to federal prosecutors too. Diane went completely blank after that. No tears, no performance, just silence. 3 weeks later, she was indicted. Forgery, aggravated perjury, theft from an estate, money laundering, wire fraud. Her lawyer was indicted too. Trevor cooperated. The condo was seized. The accounts were frozen. The money came back. Diane called me once after posting bail. "You ruined my life," she said. I told her, "No. You built a house on someone else's land. I just showed up with the deed. Then I blocked the number. I sold the lake house. Set up a scholarship in my mother's name. Fired the financial advisor who'd been too comfortable around Diane. Hired someone who answered only to me. I adopted a 3-legged rescue dog and named him Verdict. Diane took a plea deal. 6 years. Her boyfriend got home confinement, which sounds a lot less glamorous when the beach condo has been seized and home means his mother's guest room. I didn't go to Diane's sentencing. Instead, I went to my mother's grave and told her everything. About the theft, the courtroom, the binder, the dog, and the truth I never said out loud while it was happening. I wasn't fearless. Not once. For 5 straight months, I was terrified she'd find out what I knew before I was ready. But fear is noisy. Evidence is patient. Diane was loud. I was quiet. She played to the room. I played the record. And in the end, that was the part she never understood. The people who try hardest to make you look crazy usually panic the moment you stay calm long enough to let them finish talking.